That's the good stuff.
Welcome back, everybody, to Goodwill Podcasting with Dan and Stone, your movie podcast that today is talking about 28 years later, the third chapter in this zombie franchise, putting it in quote, because there's been a lot of definitions over the last couple of days about what a zombie truly is. But anyways, it is the return of Danny Boyle and Alex Garland to this universe. Very much anticipated movie, especially after Boots. I mean, the trailer, one of the best trailers released probably in the last 5 years or so. Everyone was super hyped for this movie. And then it came out, and we've seen some negative reviews, and we've seen some positive reviews. We got some, flack on our guy Dan over here, but then also we have a guest on who seems to have liked the movie. And I'm very curious as to hear his full thoughts on it. But it is LP Longmire, first time on Goodwill Podcasting. Love saying that. We try to get people on the podcast who really apply to the episode. And I was wondering, because I don't know if you know this, I'm a big fan of yours. I'm really into Lost, really into J.J. Abrams, really into Severance. My wife is super jealous of the two of you because both of y'all got that Severance package with like the vending machine. And she's like, did you see that people got that and they had AirPods? I had like one video that did like 2,000 or 3,000 likes. I did like one video at Severance. She's like, do you think you'll get that? I'm like, no. Anyways, dude, I'm so excited that you're here. You've posted already two awesome videos about 28 years later. And, just tell people about yourself if you want, where they can find you and just, what you thought about 28 years.
Where people can find me is on TikTok, LP Longmire. You can find me on there. I am a filmmaker and I am, screenwriter. I've worked on several movies that I'm not going to mention because you've never heard of them, but that's, what I do by trade. And I also mentor a lot of film students, help them with their projects and stuff like that. So film is very much my life. It kind of, it's more than an obsession. It's my, job. It's my hobby. It's everything, and, I don't know. We'll get into it, but like you say that I like the movie, but I think my answer might surprise you. But that's very cool, by the way, to hear that you've been following my stuff, and I didn't know that. It's really cool. I still post on TikTok under this delusion that nobody watches me. So like when
that is a delusion.
It's definitely a delusion.
Yeah. When people say stuff like that to me, I'm always like, oh wow, like I just kind of I don't know.
Yeah, those thousands of views are fake. That's no one.
It's all
those are all paid.
Yeah.
But I guess because Dan has shared his thoughts. I didn't get around to posting my review yet. What are your thoughts in 28 years? My thoughts. It would surprise me because you posted two very informative videos, very interesting videos, but I don't know.
Yeah. So if you'll notice though, in my videos, and I do this with not just 28 years later, this is how I just like to speak about film in general. I do this with all of I really refrain from, I don't try to give my subjective opinion. I don't give a score. And that's like no shade to people that do that. I think people that do that, that's important. We need film criticism. It's a very, very important thing. I try my best to just break down objectively what I think the filmmaker was going for, like the themes and stuff like that. I try to keep a lot of my, look, not everything about this film worked for me. And like I say, we'll get into it, but I think that it's definitely one of those films that I deeply appreciate what it's trying to do and what it's going for. I don't know if they stick the landing a lot of times, but I definitely am able to appreciate the artistic integrity that is at play there.
This is a bold movie. This is really bold, and I think that
yes,
for me, the most impressive thing about it, because I liked it a lot more than you guys, but the most impressive thing about it is it's not what people expected. Now that's bad for some people and it's good for other people, but I like that this is a legacy sequel. You can call it that. And it's not a rehashing of 28 days. And I know they had nothing really involved they executive produced 28 Weeks, but still, it's not like a bunch of zombies breaking out and you're running away from it. It feels, in my review on Letterboxd, I kind of depicted it as an epic. Like this feels like the first chapter of a trilogy. It feels like a very large horror story, a very large world, way more than Days and Weeks was. But I know Dan, I think, felt the same way, but we can maybe start getting into the nitty gritty of the three distinct acts of this movie. Dan, you said the first part of it with Aaron Taylor Johnson and Alfie Williams, that was your favorite segment of the movie, right?
Yeah, I think, and to give a little caveat of like where I'm coming from, I think I had watched 28 Days a really long time ago. I rewatched it right before this, and then I watched 28 Weeks. I know people don't like 28 Weeks. I loved it. And I'm, we're not talking about that today, but I think that movie I feel is a little bit underappreciated, and I think actually has a lot more to say. I think people tend to try to treat that as more of like a spectacle movie or just like a mindless action movie. I love the way it looks at like the governmental response and the way the United States gets involved. I love the way they kind of dehumanize everyone, and it shows you that very bluntly, and how the human beings there end up just getting treated exactly like the infected and all that. And I think it's pretty good storytelling centering around like a terrible father, like a coward, someone that handles pretty much every situation in the worst way possible. But I think, if you look at that character, maybe you don't want to see yourself, like you don't want to be like, man, I might be a coward in that situation, right? Like I might turn and run and, leave my wife there. Like, I think people see that and they hate it so much because they're like, I would never do that. I would stand there and fight 10 zombies with my hands and die with them. Like, would you? And it's just like, there's no right answer there. But anyway, I'm all kind of fresh into this. And that being said, I didn't quite really have expectations around this movie. I went in really willing. Like I love the trailer. I think movie trailers in general are, we all think they're going downhill. Posters are going, like everything is going downhill in terms of promotional stuff and marketing, I think. And that's a separate conversation, but really good trailer that I love. Just gave you a little bit of like the tone and then left it at that. Yeah, and I think I am not a fan of Aaron Taylor Johnson a lot of the time. I think he's often, I like him, but I think he's oftentimes miscast. I think he stood out in Nosferatu like a sore thumb. And I kind of felt for him because I didn't think it was the right casting. Craven the Hunter, like he tried. It's just, that universe is what it is. Yeah. I like that movie a tiny bit better than most people because I thought it was so campy and silly. Yeah. I was almost like just having fun, but he's had some tough roles, and there's talk about him going into Bond, which I was kind of out on, but I loved this performance. I think this character feels very much a product of his world, a product of the situation, watching his wife die while managing, basically being a single parent in a world that's falling apart. He's also deeply flawed. I would say a bad man, I would say, like if you had to classify him or bucket him. But I like when, again, going back to 28 Weeks, I like when writers are willing to give you suboptimal people, right? And make you uncomfortable with watching them, and they're your part, one of your heroes. But I think the father-son dynamic was strong, and I think kind of Alfie, having that moment of realization of like seeing through the fog at who his father actually was. Like he's a cheater, he's an abuser, he's a man, right? He's a flawed man. He's not this Superman that we all think our dad is when we're little kids. And I think we all sort of have that moment in different ways. But I thought that stuff was all really good, and then you just stop. Like you just leave everything you're doing there, and you just leave that character in the dust. And like part of it was like I feel like you just got to the super challenging place of like showing abuse, and like you saw the cheating and all that, and like you don't do anything else with that dynamic. And I found that so strange, especially because I loved the performance that Aaron Taylor Johnson was giving. Despite, people kind of ragged on his accent a little bit. It's a very specific accent from a very specific place in England. But I just found that really frustrating. But I loved that first act. I think The only thing I didn't like there was I think the editing is really strange. I don't like all the bullet time stuff. I think it felt. I'm trying to think of the nicest word possible. I think it just felt really amateur, like, and strange. I think it felt like it would have maybe made sense 20 years ago. But here, like, when it kept being used repetitively, I was just like, this is just jarring and kind of like unintentionally funny. And I think unintentional humor is just throughout this entire thing. And there's plenty of intentional humor, but there's a lot of stuff that was not supposed to be funny that my theater was like openly laughing at, and just like the theater was all critics as well. Like, it wasn't a public screening. So like, it's just really uneven. But the first act, I was on board. I was thinking I was like loving it. I was like, this is going to be a really strong movie for about the first 40 minutes, and then it evolved. But that's my kind of take on the first bit.
It kind of has like I feel like the discourse surrounding this movie, you know what it eerily reminds me of? Does it you guys remember The Village? Like the way The Village was perceived? Because like The Village did a similar thing where it was like, it was advertised as a Joaquin Phoenix movie, and then you go see the movie, and then midway through the movie, the male protagonist kind of gets taken out of the story, the baton gets tossed to the female, to the what's her name?
Bryce Dallas Howard.
Bryce Dallas Howard. Bryce, yeah, gets tossed to her, and then she and people either found that to be like, wow, that was a really unexpected, cool twist that I didn't see, or it totally lost them. You know what I mean? Like, they just did it because they sort of felt like, oh, I was so emotionally attached to this guy. And then you kind of you don't see him again till the very end of the story, which is kind of what happens here with Aaron Taylor Johnson. It's like you're saying, Dan, it's like you're with him for probably a good 45 minutes, and then you don't see him again until the very end of the movie.
Yeah, and here it's not so much like emotional attachment, right? As just like, I think the dynamic is interesting. And I like seeing a challenging father-son dynamic, and like a challenging husband and wife dynamic. And I wish, A, he had either gone with them, or B, I'm not sure why they didn't go back out to get the doctor together and bring him back. And they could have had this situation with the three of them together dealing with her sickness, and with Ralph Fiennes kind of coming into this town would have been completely foreign to him. I think that would have been really interesting. And that's kind of the confusion. So what did you think about it?
Yeah, you saying that actually makes me want to ask a question, because now I'm having trouble remembering. Did they establish, like, once he oh yeah, they did, didn't they? When he and his mom left the island, I think the dad did try to go after him, but I guess the tide had rose, right? So he
then he just doesn't go back. He just doesn't try at all.
That's it. Yeah, he just can't. Yeah. Like, they don't have boats, I guess.
Yeah, but I think, like, I don't know if they established also how often the tide is changing. Like, I don't think it's. I got the impression that it's something that's more frequent. So, like, I think the amount of time he was away, I found it baffling that he wouldn't go back, especially at least for his son. I mean, that part was just odd to me. But
yeah.
So, do you think if you rewatch the movie now, knowing that Spike or Alfie Williams is the lead, it is very misleading. The fact that he's obviously, this was a no-name actor, no-name kid. I think this is his first thing he's ever acted in, which props to Danny Boyle,
phenomenal kid. Yeah, he's great.
The casting director. Yeah, but going into it, if you rewatched it a second time, which I know that you didn't particularly care for the movie, do you think that knowing that this is a movie that's focused about him and how his father and his relationship with him, and especially that hunt at the very beginning, influenced the second part, and it's more about his journey and how, he has this outlook on this whole world based on his two parents' perspectives? Do you think that would rope you in a little bit better knowing that going in a second time?
Not really. I think I'd be just as disappointed the second time.
Okay.
But I don't know. Knowing just maybe knowing how the movie feels in terms of like the editing and like some of the shot choices, and like knowing the direction it's going to go, maybe I'd like it more, just because I found some of it just really strange. But it really lost me down the road. And I one thing I wanted to ask you guys about that's especially prevalent early on. How did you feel about the sort of like time and setting jumps around where they were just kind of like seemingly like they were connected but not connected and just showing you like random things? And we also had the Laurence Olivier Henry V stuff, which I thought was cool, and we can talk about that. But how did you feel about the way that was all put together early on?
Good, LB.
I mean, so I pretty much am able to, like, you know, everything Dan's saying, it's like I'm able to kind of rock with it. The only thing that he and I are going to fundamentally disagree on, I love the way this film was shot.
I love it too.
Very cool. I think like all the different tricks and all the little things that they were trying to do with the, you know, kind of the Matrix style. I'm sure you guys have seen those behind the scenes where they do the cell phones and stuff. I love that. I thought that was super cool, and I could have had more of that. So yeah, doing the different jump cuts of showing us different things like the war footage and things like that. My absolute favorite shots that they would do would be the red sequences of night, you know, where you would see like so unnerving and creepy of the infected. Man, that was so cool. The only thing that I hated, like every time they would do it, I would go, no, like it would kind of like pull me out of it, was the ridiculous, like, and it wasn't like enough to ruin the movie or anything. I think they only did it like twice, but the obvious CGI deers, like when you see the CGI, like that made me go, oh no, what are you doing? Because what I really appreciate about 28 Days Later is and there is a little bit of CGI in that film as well, but it's so subtle. It's the use of practical. I mean, that's what we love about zombie movies in general, right? You know, like I would say the zombie genre, it kind of, that's what the audience loves about it, is the use of practical effects. Most of these films are done on a low budget, so it kind of just, you know, spears that sort of, I think that's one of the reasons why this is my hot take, World War Z. I know a lot of people like to say that film, people don't like it because it like was so far away from the book. I say it's because it had a massive budget and Brad Pitt. It had like a huge A-lister and like a lot of money thrown at it. And it just kind of gets away from what makes the zombie genre so special. So every time this movie would do that, when it would do some sort of like crazy CGI thing, I would go, no, don't do that. Stay with the practical effects, you know. The only thing that I would love to know what shot was practical. It looked CGI, but man, it was beautiful. That gorgeous shot where they're running away from the Alpha and they're running to the island, the water, and you see that gorgeous shot of the night sky. Dude, I don't know how they did that. That was amazing. That was like such cinematography magic. You know what I mean? Like so beautiful.
Did you like that sequence, Dan? That's one of the best. I knew there was some tricky editing there too. It's like the editing like lagged for a second too, and I think that's so cool. I also agree, LP, with the editing. I think a lot of times, even with camera work, when it comes to 2025 movies, like I just watched How to Train Your Dragon, and it's the live action one, and it's fine. It's a shot, you know, shot for shot basically of the original film. But I think there's just this static nature to films nowadays where filmmakers don't think that they can have fun with the camera. Like it's stationary all the time. The same thing with editing is like, this is how editing is done, and this is how editing is going to be. And I like that Danny Boyle, even with those shots of like the night vision, like you're talking about, the red, that is just like having an idea, and doesn't necessarily play into like the narrative. Does it have anything to really add to Spike and his father? No, but it's just creepy imagery. It's like an idea, and you don't have to show it for long, but it just adds to the whole lore that they're building in this world. But Dan, did you like that the strip them running to the island?
Dude, when that happened, I was like, I'm watching a 4.5. I was like, this is great. But yeah, I love that sequence, and I honestly thought they were going to kill Aaron Taylor Johnson there.
Ooh, okay.
And I liked, like, I like when movies don't make characters feel comfortable. Like, I hate predictability. I hate, like, you know, I like just I like doing challenging things and stuff that the audience might not like sometimes. But
I'll say this movie's definitely unpredictable.
Yeah. It is and it isn't, but I would say, like, I genuinely thought they were potentially going to kill him there. So,
like, I keep getting comments, and I'm sure you get comments like this too, guys, where it's like people will comment and they'll say something to the effect of like, "Would you recommend this movie?" And I'm like, I don't know how to answer that because I don't know.
Everyone's different.
Yeah. Everyone's different. A film is so subjective, and so this and how I've been answering it to people is this film is an acquired taste. I think your mileage may vary. I think this is a film that, you know, I think this is a movie where I think you could say I absolutely loathe it or I absolutely love it. And I don't think either opinion is wrong. You know, I think that this is like a really good example of that, where this movie is definitely challenging you. And you're either going to love that about it, you're going to love that it's challenging the audience, that it's trying to do different things, or it's just not going to be your. And it sounds like with Dan, it's just not your cup of tea. Or it's just not, it just didn't, I mean, you can't help, you know, everybody has a visceral reaction to everything. You can't help that, you know, and it didn't land. It didn't hit with you, especially when it changed to the mother story, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Did you have any, because I feel a lot of people, I've seen a lot of things online, and I was this way as well. It seems like the whole Jodie Comer, right? The second half of this movie is where the ball really dropped for you. When it came to her storyline and it came to a very emotional climax with her character, did you find yourself feeling for her at all in that moment? Do you think the film did a good job of connecting the chemistry between her and her son, the bond that they have, and fulfilling that to, you know, its end?
I think it's hard. I think they make her feel so detached from what is going on and so just kind of completely lost that it's almost to the detriment of the writing. Like, I feel like you almost don't feel like there's even a connection, or that she even always knows necessarily like who her son is. And I think I get at what they were trying to do in regards, she kept calling him, you know, dad, and obviously she was having some kind of hallucination of her father, and like it's in this situation where this kid who, you know, was just learning how to survive under his own father is now in a position where he's protecting his mother. I found the idea of him just having seen how dangerous the outside world actually is. I didn't believe that he would ever take his mother in the way that he did. I think it's just, it comes off as a little bit silly. I think he probably would have been scared shitless and been like, yeah, I can't do that by myself, especially with a mom who doesn't know where she is. I found that a little bit strange. Again, that goes into where I feel like they could have just written that in a way where like it was either the three of them going to him or the two of them, the father and son, going to bring the doctor back. And that's kind of what I would have liked better. But to answer your question, no, it never really clicked for me emotionally. And I think part of it is because of how she's written. I also just think, I mean, when you're bringing cancer into a story, that's going to affect everyone differently. Everyone has different personal, you know, dynamics with that. I know I talked to, like Brock's mom dealt with cancer, and like that section really was effective for him. And we talked about that, and you know, I totally get that. My dad has been dealing with cancer on and off since I was in high school. He's on his third go around now. And I just think like something about that almost not pissed me off, but I was just like, I don't like stories about like giving up. Like I think like something about that just kind of fundamentally bothers me. And I just thought the whole sequence, like I felt like the whole setup of that was strange. And there were some moments in there that I also found unintentionally funny a little bit. Like I felt like there was just awkward writing in how they were talking to each other and like sedating. Like I understand what they were doing, and then just like getting the skull, it all felt a little bit too strange for me, especially because like coming off of that first act, it felt like a different movie. And like that in and of itself is not bad, but I think it's about how you manage that transition, whether you're like, okay, there's been a gear shift and you're reminded that you're watching a movie. Like that's, I think, what throws it off in the end. And that's kind of how I felt. But no, the emotional stuff didn't work for me. And that whole section just kind of like more so bothered me than anything else.
One thing I've noticed about Jodie Comer's character and Isla and her mental state with her sickness, I haven't seen anybody point it out just yet, is that it goes away when her motherly instincts are trying to kick in gear,
Oh,
which
yeah,
is
yeah.
which is two significant moments of the movie. It's
Yeah.
one where she's trying to protect the bloater or whatever they call him in the film, is trying to get at him, and then when that baby pops out, she is never in an altered state again.
Yeah.
So okay, do we not like the baby? Dan, which I will say that in the lore of the 28 years later universe, with the virus, the rage virus infecting the blood, a woman getting pregnant and having a child and not being infected is entirely possible. Because like anatomy, like the only thing that carries over from the female to like the infant is like oxygen. So the blood of her is not the blood of it. So it makes sense. Like AIDS, like when somebody has AIDS and it passes on to a kid, they don't pass it on to the child. So I thought that was kind of cool, nifty. Now I did think that it was the guy's kid, Samson's kid, kind of like a whole. I felt like the end of I Am Legend a little bit, like this is my woman. But I think that I thought for a second that the Ragers were like doing it. And I was like, I don't know about that. But I think she got later on infected.
Yeah, LP, do you want to talk about that scene first? I've been talking.
Well, like I want to just catapult off what he said. Like I didn't take it like he was angry that his woman got killed. I just took it like he wanted his baby so he could infect it.
Mm.
That was my reading of it. Like he was just running after him. He just wanted the baby. I mean, I don't know. I love that sequence. That was like one of my favorite. I thought that was beautiful. You know, when she like kind of holds her hands with it and stuff. And, you know, these creatures are, because, you know, that is the uniqueness of this franchise. You know, people are constantly mislabeling them as zombies. They're not. They're still people. They're just filled with rage. And it's like in that, like you're saying, in that motherly moment, these two women kind of have this sort of moment together of like, hey, I'm going to help you through this, you know? And I thought that was awesome.
I thought the way they just built the lore in this movie, because that's something they really don't do in the first two films, because obviously 28 days later, it's not really about that. It's like there's rage, people are infected and they're running. That's basically it.
Yeah.
I guess Weeks gets into it a little bit with some people being immune, but this one, like with the alphas and the baby, and also just, I guess this doesn't necessarily in the bloaters, but what Ray finds in the idea of a doctor in like the bone temple, when you're talking about the CGI deers, something that bothered me about the How to Train Your Dragon live action film is I told Dan this last week, I wish it was like Lord of the Rings, where they did a great job of building practical sets, but those practical sets weren't on location, where they filmed the aerial shots of look at this island that we're filming on. The sets weren't there. And something I found really cool was you could tell the bone temple was practical, and they built that thing, and they built it on location. But then you got the CGI deers that come in. I'm like, okay, you just ruined this beautiful setting you got here.
Like you couldn't get real deers.
That was a lot of deer. That was a lot of deer.
Yeah, I mean, come on. We couldn't get real. I mean, I don't know. That I hated when that happened. That was the only like that is my one complaint with this movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not a baby guy, Dan. What we got?
I think with that sequence, a couple things. Again, like I talked about I felt like there was a lack of believability with them even leaving in the first place. I feel like there's a lack of believability with her having any awareness of this world. She's a grown adult approaching, like there's nothing in these movies, in this franchise, to indicate any, like, I understand that maybe we can see the potential being there. There's nothing that's shown to us that indicates this is, like, she has a level of humanity to, like, have that amount of connection and, like, stop herself from attacking a person because she, like, that is kind of the first moment, I believe, that we see any type of anything really besides I'm going to kill you, right? Like, so it felt a little bit jarring, and I think, like, something about that scene, reducing it to like this infected can find its humanity through like motherhood, and like I feel like Isla in this film is really just designated as a mother. She is kind of defined by her role, and like you don't get much else to her besides she is his mom. And like I just think assigning value in humanity because someone is having a kid, something about that just, again, rubbed me the wrong way from a writing perspective. And then, like, this might be terrible, but, like, why should that Swedish soldier not assume that the kid would be infected? Like, he could be thinking the kid was gonna bite her at any moment. Like, he's a soldier. And I don't think in that moment anyone's gonna sit there rationally and be like, well, what are the statistical probabilities that this kid is not infected? Like, it's just, you're probably gonna shoot it. Like, I'm just being completely blunt and real. Like, I think it all felt a little like faux emotional in a way that I just don't think would occur in that moment. I understand that realism is not really a fact. It doesn't matter actually, but like, it just didn't quite sell me. What do you think about that, Stone?
To me, I don't think that they were having like a mother to mother moment. I think Jodie Comer's character definitely was. Like I said, that's when she gets snapped out of the cancer in her mind. But I think that's the fact that the Rager at that moment could not do anything because her desire and hunger of the virus was being overpowered by having a child. Like, that's the only thing she could think about. And even though she's just like this, and I think Jodie Comer just like grabbed onto her. I don't think, now it can be interpreted different ways, because
I felt like she was like looking for that, which I was like,
I think it could be a lot different if the infected didn't try to attack her right afterwards. If like she was changed forever because this child popped up. Like, right after she's like, that pain's over, she's like, all right, I'm gonna fuck y'all up now, basically.
Yeah.
That's how I saw it.
So do you think it felt strange with her even taking the risk to get that close to the infected?
Well, like I said, she's a mother, so she heard something was going on, and she was just like curious, and she hears a woman in pain, because I think that's like the pain is outweighing the virus at this point. So she's like drawn to that sound, and she sees a woman in pain. So it's not necessarily, I don't think it really has anything to do with the Rager in that moment. It's all Jodie Comer and how her outlook and with this all. And something that you said was like the soldier, why wouldn't the soldier assume that the baby's infected? I think it might be the soldier looks at these people differently. He looks at them as below him, right? These people don't even know what an iPhone is. Like, this boy's commenting on my girl, thinks she looks ugly when she looks fine as hell. So it's the fact that they know, right? They live in this world. They know what an infected person, how to view an infected person. It is the red around the eyes, which I think is how they can distinguish it really quick. So it's the fact that he doesn't even believe them. Like, they're like, I swear the baby's not infected. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna mow you all down. Get out of the way. I don't care. So it's more, I think it's a relationship between the people who are in this isolation zone and this guy who's still, even though they've maybe hung out with a little bit and he carried the mom on his back, still is just like, I don't like you people. I'm gonna kill you all.
Also, did you guys think he gave a good performance? And I felt like, first of all, I didn't think he gave a good performance, and I felt like it was jarring again after watching good performances in the first third. And I also felt like there was a lot of like silly humor with him that was written in there that I was just like, you're trying to move this story into the emotional climax, right? Like, you have this super serious mother-son thing, and then you put in this goofy-ass Swedish kid who I don't think is giving a good performance. I'm just like, this to me feels like it's working against what you're trying to do. And like, again, maybe that's why I wasn't able to get to the point of like feeling anything when you get to Ray Fiennes. Like, does that make sense at all? Or
Okay,
I thought he was fine. I thought he was a fine actor. I think that this movie, these characters, and I kind of touched on this in my TikTok video earlier, but I think Alex Garland had beef. I think this was a diss track. I think he used these characters as a vehicle he had something he wanted to say, because I know that he really hated what they did with 28 Weeks. Like, he hates that movie because, the studio kind of wanted to take that film and sort of franchise it. And they wanted it to be that the virus is spreading and it's going to enter into other parts of the world. And he very much wants it to be about UK. We are focusing on UK trauma. 28 Days Later was, really drawing inspiration from like mad cow disease and a lot of just things that they were dealing with at the time and their history. And he wanted it to remain that way. And so I think that that's how you get into, how this movie ends. I mean, we'll get into that, of course. But like, I think he wanted to use this. I think he is frustrated that he's having to do a sequel. That's my theory. I think that because we've seen filmmakers do this before in other IPs where they kind of like use a sequel as yes, perfect example. Like as a vehicle to be like, I don't want to be making this. And this is going to be a diss track on the studio system, on the fans. I do think that is kind of what he's doing with this film. And I think that that might be like what you're butting up against, what you're feeling is sort of the, man, why does it in the second act, these characters are just doing things that seem unnatural, or they feel like, it's like, I think that's because we're kind of bleeding into that territory. It's like the first act of the movie. It's like, it's very much set in what you expect, the tone and what you expect a zombie movie to be. And then he's like, okay, but now I'm going to take it over here. Now I'm going to take it over here into this territory where now this is what I really want to say. And this is what I really want the film to be. And I mean, and that's what I mean by at the beginning of this podcast, when I said that, like, I really respect that that's what he's trying to do. I really, just some interviews that I've watched with him, I really think, obviously these guys are smart. They're not going to come right out and say that that's what they're doing, but I think that's what he's doing. And the movie takes swings and I admire it. I don't know. It's fascinating.
I also will say this is the first project Alex Garland has ever been involved with in any way that I have not liked. The first. I've
like Men?
Yes.
Okay.
See, Men is a movie where, like, maybe I feel how you feel about this. Like, I have it on like 3 stars. Men is a movie that's just consistently saying fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Like, that's the point of the movie. Like, it's not something that, like, I'd be to my buddy, like, hey man, go watch Men, you'll love it. Like, and that's where, like, when I'm talking to my audience on there, I'm like, am I going to tell the average person, like, do I think the average person is going to enjoy 28 Years Later? No. So, like, I'm not going to be like, go spend your money on it. But, like, I can appreciate, like, I think you can appreciate the artistic merit or, like, the message. Like, Men is supposed to make you uncomfortable and it's supposed to be ridiculous. That last sequence is supposed to be frustrating because that's the point. Like, and that's what he wanted to say. And I think, like, Alex Garland is like a provocateur. Like, he's someone that likes, like, I think he thinks a lot of the shit's funny, and, like, I think he probably enjoys it, and he likes to, like,
100%, yeah.
And, like, that's awesome. But I think when you do that, you will occasionally make a movie that, like, some people are just going to be like, man, fuck this movie. Like, you know, like, this shit's annoying. Like, and a lot of people really despise Alex Garland, and say people call him a hack, this and that. Like, I don't think that at all. I do like him still. And this, again, like I said, this is the first thing I've seen that I've been like, just not for me. But I think Men is a great thing to bring up because I get what you're saying there, and I understand that.
Yeah, because, like, I don't know, like, what I talked to a few people who were like, man, I was with this movie up until the Jimmy Savile stuff at the tail end of when it goes full Power Rangers, and it's like, I guess for me, it's like, I don't know, did you see the ending sequence of Men? It goes pretty off the rails too, and it didn't lose me. So I guess for me, it was sort of, it worked for me, but maybe that's just because I don't know. It's like I'm just so, which you guys are too, clearly. I'm obviously, when I speak this way, I'm talking about normies, like people that haven't seen Men or haven't seen a lot of movies, but they're wanting to tune into this because it's a zombie movie or something. It's like, for me, it's like I'm just so familiar with his body of work. I expected it to go off the rails in certain ways, and it definitely does. And so that stuff didn't pull me out of it. It's an acquired taste for sure.
And can we just talk quickly? Maybe we can step back after this, but, like, to quickly talk about the ending, I want to, like, talk about it a little bit. If this entire movie had been that, I would have loved it. Like, I like goofy shit like that. Like, I found it hilarious. I think, like, it definitely is jarring coming after the second act. Like, they're so disconnected. It does feel bizarre. I did still think it would, like, we all were laughing. And obviously it wasn't meant to be taken seriously. I think when and this is where, like, Alex Garland did something that I just find fucking annoying. Like when you take a serial pedophile, necrophiliac, elder rapist, and he still has victims that are alive that were kids, and you make him a goofy little punchline, dark comedy punchline at the end of your movie, it's fucking weird. Like, and I feel like sometimes we dance around this stuff, like, and don't call it what it is. And I understand, like, it's art, but at the same time, like, people, like, rape victims are just more important than art. So, like, that's where I just have a complete, like, as I got into reading about, like, the shit he actually did, I was like, this is just, it's too soon to this, to, like, and I people, like, trying to spoon feed me the point and what he was trying to, like, I get it. It's not rocket science, but, like, at the end of the day, like, he just was a fucking pedophile. And that shit's not, it's not funny. And, like, if it was, like, if people are like, oh, well, it was in 2002, so they wouldn't have known about his crime. First of all, they did know about his crimes. It was, like, a hush-hush thing where they, like, didn't talk about it. But, like, if you made a movie and Harvey Weinstein was a punchline, right? Like, they were dressed up like fat-ass Harvey Weinstein, right? Like, all his, and it was the Harveys. And you were like, oh, well, this was 1998, so his crimes are not, like, it's still the same shit. Like, you still are doing the same thing. And I just think there's so much, like, semantic games that are played with this shit, and, like, sometimes you just have to call it what it is. So I thought that was in bad taste. And, like, when it first leaked in the UK, their opinion is far more important than our opinion, and they were not happy. Like, they all bugged out when the images first leaked. So, like, I think you can't just dismiss that because those people have family members that were fucking raped, and they were little kids. Like, so I think the discourse is bad.
I said I did read a British reviewer that when he watched this, they were talking about that the last scene, and he said, like, that's the most horrific scene of the entire movie. And coming from an American audience, I think that is the scene that stands out the most. That is what everybody has been talking about, and I think it creates some conversation. Like, it is turning Americans onto this horrible person, and an unfortunate part of British history. And the whole thing, like, do you think, yes, it is uncomfortable for the victims' families, but I also think that Alex Garland is criticizing the UK as a whole. Like, like, this is on you. Like, if something had happened to the world in 2002, this is who this person would have been because of your inability to, make him accountable for his actions. So I think that both Danny and Alex are more so upset with the government over there and how this was hidden for so long. And they're saying that there's people in 2002 who looked up to this man like this.
They literally knighted him.
And that is on you.
Fucking
And that
Margaret
is your
Thatcher.
fault. And it's the fact that even through Spike's turmoil and journey and battles that he went through in this movie, he's still a kid. So when he sees these individuals who are larger than life, who are killing these infected in a different way than his father, even though he did try to leave his childhood behind, it still ropes him right back in, because children's television is just that infectious to someone that young. And it's just like, even through all of this, still someone this vile, just because of how it's marketed, can rope you right back in. And I think that they're not trying to be necessarily insensitive with Alex's writing. I think that, like I said, I think he's critiquing UK in general, and the fact that this should have been done and done when the first crime happened, and for somehow it didn't come to light until 2011, 2012.
I don't think any of that's in question, Stone. And again, like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, if one person that was raped by that guy as a kid watches this and wants to fucking throw up and wants to leave, like, if one fucking person feels that way, it's garbage. None of the artistic intention matters. It doesn't matter. It is not more important than that person. I'll push back all day on that. Like, I don't care that he thinks it's, like, smart or he has a message. Like, you can have a message and it can still be, there could have found another way to do the same thing that doesn't have to be that's so recent, like, for these people. Like, you can he's a smart guy. Like, I have faith that he could have done that. So what's your take, LP?
I almost wonder if it's one of those things that it will make sense in the next one, because I understand that the next one's already shot. It's coming out in like January, which is crazy. But I think that, it's also my understanding that that Cillian Murphy is supposed to come back. Is what's
he's in the next movie? Yeah,
he's definitely in it. Okay, and his name was Jim in the first movie. So then you have Jimmy, and I wonder if there's some sort of weird. I just wonder if it'll make sense. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like the jury's still out for me on that ending sequence. I mean, I listened to Dan. I'm sure you guys saw that too. Did you see what Danny Boyle said about his thoughts and opinions on it, and how he was like, it's a horror franchise, so he wanted to do something that was scary. And it was, and so to people in the UK, when they saw that, they were horrified. They were like, oh my gosh, this is because this dude is the boogeyman for them, And yeah, if you don't know who that is over here in America and you saw that, you're like, what is this? This is nuts, And then but I think like Stone said, I think it's a good thing that America is getting, this film is bringing awareness to that man,
Yeah,
And
I had no idea who he was.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing that this movie's doing. I think that's a great thing. I mean, I just love that in general about this film, and I just think that's what film should strive to do, is create conversation. I love that. I love the obviously the respectable conversation that's happening. I know there's a lot of awful discord that's happening surrounding this film, which sucks, but it's the
Speaking
internet.
of
I'm with it.
like discourse, like Dan, you nailed it. It's like, I'm not, Rotten Tomatoes is like whatever, like people pay attention more than they need to, but when it comes to Rotten Tomatoes, it's kind of hard unless something is labeled as woke for people to like go in there and review bomb something. It's really hard for an audience score to not be pretty good. Usually audience scores are, everyone basically just likes every single movie unless they have some weird prejudice against it. But with this, it's pretty low. And it was really interesting hearing the box office predictions. I like box office a lot, and I think it really is important to, there's a third movie that Danny Boyle has said, yeah, we do have a third movie planned, but it's not financed. And it depends on how good this movie does and in the next one as well. And I remember that when Thursday came around, the numbers were really good. They were even more solid, better than Sinners numbers. So the industry was like, okay, this is going to be a 50, or I think it was 45 to 50 million dollar opening weekend. Awesome. Over the last couple of days, it has tanked tremendously, and it opened up to 30 million.
But does that surprise you guys at all? Like, audiences are not going to like, this is a critic movie. Like,
yes.
Do you guys know what the budget was for this film?
I think it's between 60 and 70 million. So far worldwide right now, it has made 60 million. Maybe it'll be even, I don't know how long it's been open in the UK or in Europe or anything like that. So it'll be tricky. It'll be, Also, what do you guys think about Nia DaCosta, someone who's not British, directing the second film? I think it's a very interesting choice.
Interesting choice.
I mean, I'm all for her. Give her a chance. Like, if she makes a bad fucking movie, call it bad. But like, I kind of like her Candyman movie, and I think she tried to make that her own and like do her own thing with it, which I respect. The fucking Marvel, like, they fucked her in the ass on the Marvel.
Oh
like,
yeah,
like,
you can't.
They just railroaded her, and it was so embarrassing. And like that is Marvel at their worst. Like, taking a director and then just cutting them off at the knees, and not letting them make their movie, and getting a Kevin Feige movie, and then you wonder why good directors don't want to come work for you because they don't get to make their fucking movies. How are they supposed to advance their career? So I'm curious about the next movie. Like, I'm not necessarily like, I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm guaranteed it's going to be bad because I didn't like this. Like, I'm still curious about the next movie. But
yeah, like, I'm just wondering, is the next movie, is it going to be in that tone?
Yeah.
Like, is the whole film, like, did you give us a preview of what the whole film, or at least are you going to do like what you did with this one, where it's like the first 45 minutes is in that tone, and then maybe it does the opposite of this movie, and then it delves into like, okay, now we're into more traditional horror, what you expect.
Is Alex Garland going to write the next movie?
He wrote it.
Yeah, he wrote it. And then I believe that Danny, if they do the third film, Danny is coming back to direct that one. So, but I guess because obviously with the Jimmy Savile stuff, that is such a England issue, right? Something that's very important to people over there. So if that's like a main plot point of the second movie, having someone who's not from there, take charge of that, it is a choice. That's all I can say. I mean, this first movie was all about choices. So that is another bold choice that they've decided to make.
No, I mean you're making a good point that I hadn't even
But
thought of.
do we think, because it's called the Bone Temple, so I'm assuming Ray Fiennes, that's the Bone Temple, but now he's away from that. So I'm assuming somehow Ray Fiennes is going to get roped back into this whole narrative. I don't know how, but
What did you guys think of his performance in general?
orange,
I mean,
a lot of Donald Trump.
I mean, I don't know. He's Voldemort, you know. I could watch him read the phone book. He was fine for me. I thought he was good.
I thought it told the outlook and like the meaning behind the Bone Temple was really powerful.
Yeah.
And that it's the whole thing with the rage virus. It's like these people are not monsters; they're just infected, and they might be different in their life, but when they die, we're all the same. So when you look at all these pieces of these humans, you don't know who is who. You don't know who was infected and who wasn't infected. And also, he has like I think this because of that reason, which is I was wondering about this. That's why he doesn't kill Samson, because he doesn't want to kill anybody because he still views all these individuals as human beings, even though they are infected. And he has the means to not kill them and still keep himself safe.
Yeah.
Which I would say a little plot hole I was wondering about, because there's a really big jump cut where I think it is when his mother passes away and it's just Spike and him by himself. And all of a sudden, boom, Samson's like in there. I thought at a moment the doctor had mentioned the fact that the infected couldn't get over that water, and that like that was protecting him, like they can't come into the temple area. And then all of a sudden Samson's just there, just like wreaking havoc. I was like, I thought you were protected here, but now you're not anymore. I don't know what happened there, but maybe I misheard. But Samson's, I mean, he's unstoppable, my man. That's like it's so funny. Like two things about this movie has like Power Rangers at the end, but then also, Samson's Goliath down there. So
yeah, that was, and like some people were like bugging out about that. Like I don't really care. People are like, oh my god, they're naked. Like, all right. I just feel like some things in society people get so like weird about. Like, especially now. But something I was thinking about is why they used that particular poem in the trailer. I think that's probably worth. I was thinking about making a video about it because Rudyard Kipling wrote that about Second Boer War in South Africa, and I think that's just an interesting choice. I'm like, we mentioned earlier the Laurence Olivier Henry V, like all that footage is from Agincourt, which like I thought was. I like that because I mean the entire story there about that battle was just like this kind of underwhelming, armored, lightly armed like group of essentially English archers protecting themselves against the French, and like they were severely kind of outgunned. They were the underdog and they were able to win, and I feel like that was a fun choice given that like they decided to go the bow route with them at the beginning, which is definitely a challenge. Some of those sequences, like in the house, I'm like, you're like clearing a house with a bow, like that's sketchy as hell. But I like that they made that kind of connection. But I was thinking about that poem and why they made that choice.
I wish that those like flashbacks carried out throughout the entire movie. That's what I would say. Like seeing those scenes just in the beginning and everything with the poem, just hearing that like right at the start and seeing those different sequences from different films and everything. The fact that it only like takes place in like 5 minutes, I thought that might have been an interesting thing to carry out. Kind of maybe like the whole thing with Aaron Taylor Johnson, like the idea and mindset of this little society that they've built on this island, like carrying out through the mainland, and maybe Jodie Comer's mission of getting to the doctor. That would have been interesting. But
yeah, I know that like with 28 Days Later, that was a huge inspiration for them. Danny Boyle talked a lot about that he would look at images of war, terrorist attacks and things like that, and he would use that as inspiration to, there's like a shot in that movie where you see a woman who's dead and she's like holding a dead baby, and that was like literally an exact replica of a picture from a terrorist attack that he had found. He used a lot of that to sort of inspire, to kind of influence the film. And just coincidentally, while they were filming that movie, of course, 9/11 happens.
Yeah.
And so the timing is just so interesting. You know, when you look at when 28 Days Later was released, and just like how pretty much just so many people were able to connect with that movie in a real way that, you know, that they never could have predicted, especially American audiences. And it's just so interesting that this movie is releasing at a time when we've got a lot of scary war things happening in real world at the same time.
Same place.
Yeah, it's very weird. It's very weird, just the timing, just how, you know, how history kind of copy and paste itself. But I think that because of that, the movie's always kind of had that DNA. And so the boots, you know, I had to say that when I was at Fort Benning. I was in the military for a while, and when I saw that trailer, it was like PTSD all over again. It just like took me back. I was back at, you know, basic training. I was like, oh my gosh. And so the constant like war imagery and stuff like that, and the use of, I mean, that's just something that I think you know, that's just like what the whole film is commenting on. It's like the way we have dehumanized the infected, and the way that that's what we do when we're at war. And that's exactly what Eric was. That's what Eric to me represented. He is just completely dehumanized, like everyone on this continent, you know. And I thought it was that really spoke, that aspect of the film really spoke to me, just due to personal experience.
Yeah, it's a good comp in regards to like that particular war and like what that kind of brought to South Africa, and the way that contributed to the South Africans' future after that, and all the Afrikaners that came in at that time. Like, I think that definitely works. The other thing I was thinking about with this movie was kind of the implications around like Brexit, and just with this idea of, you know, the UK being isolated and cut off from the rest of Europe, and having these NATO forces coming in, like, also, I guess, a bit with COVID, but I thought that was definitely had to be on their minds. I thought that was interesting. But, you know, the other reason Alex Garland might not like 28 Weeks is I think 28 Weeks shows what would actually happen because what they would do is they would just drop tactical nukes on the UK, and the UK would be gone. Like, true. So maybe he was like, I don't like this, because that's what they do. But I don't think there'd just be a little blockade.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. I was reading about it. He was involved, and then it was like he left the project once he realized what they were doing.
I think that he still produced it. I think him and
they both executive produced it. Yeah.
Okay.
But what's funny is
any creative control or, you know.
Yeah.
I did a video on like the little sketchy website that they made for this right before the movie came out, and it did say a little bit about what had happened with the virus. It gave you more information on the Swedish guy's boat that went down. But the other thing was, it does say in like 2 sentences, it says that the virus has broken out of the isolation zone twice, and they've been able to push it back. So I think that's an interesting way that they have retconned the end of Weeks. So like, oh yeah, it did break out that one time, but we got it back.
Exactly. That was something I caught. That was exactly something I thought too. When I read that, I was like, yeah, that was him just bringing it back. He's like, no.
I don't see it as like it's not a retcon though. It's like people keep saying that. I think it's like blatantly wrong, because like it just showed that they were in Paris. Like they said in 28 years later, like, yeah, it made it to the mainland, and there was like a confrontation, and they pushed them out. Like, it doesn't like change the ending. It just continues the ending of 28 Weeks. I thought it made perfect sense.
I guess a lot of people wanted to see the kids. Like, they thought 28 years later was going to be a continuation, and you were going to see the kids. I was like, I didn't care about them that much. I mean, I thought their story was kind of wrapped up. I'm good with this. And it's so funny because just thinking of like people who would show up again, I saw a lot of people thinking that, I don't know if you guys would like this. I mean, Dan, you didn't like the ending of this movie too much. People said they thought that once the zombies were chasing him down the road, and he's like, there's like whatever, an avalanche has happened, and there's all those rocks, that like Cillian Murphy was gonna like pop up with a crossbow, but like, hey kid, wait. I was like, that would have been freaking Marvel pilled.
You know what though? Just to just say, you know, like, my point will be proven that this was all just like he is just trying. This is a diss track on the film industry. If that happens in the next one, Cillian Murphy shows up and it's like another joke. Like he's not. We're not doing the he's awesome. You know, he's the hero in this. It's like no, he's like Fat Thor.
Yeah, he also got rescued at the end of 28 Days Later. So I'm curious why he would be back on the mainland, and maybe they will address Weeks, and he like came back when all that happened.
Yeah, I don't know.
That is something interesting to think about. We'll see.
One other thing, maybe we can start wrapping up this conversation. But like as a closing thought, do you either of you guys agree? Like I thought that the Jack O'Connell stuff I see as like disingenuous, misleading marketing. Like to be totally blunt, like everywhere you look, pretty much he was the third top billed actor in this, and I can't look past them understanding the success of Sinners, and I feel like they were just like, oh, like people liked him in Sinners, so we'll say he's in it. Like even on Letterboxd, like he's ahead of Alfie Williams, and it's just like something about that just rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know.
Oh, he's like all over the advertisement. Like he's
so like going to Wikipedia, he's like the third billed actor, or like going to Letterboxd,
really?
the third
Okay.
billed, like, and that's like that.
And he's
that
like
stuff
barely in
matters.
it, yeah.
It's like implying that he's more prevalent than he is.
I would say no, just because I think this does mismarket just a little bit because Ray Fiennes is only in this movie for maybe 20 minutes or 25 minutes. So we know that Alfie Williams is the lead of this film. So I think it's mismarketed a little bit in that way, but they kind of had to do that. But it would be different if Jack O'Connell was like on the press tour, like talking to people. Like he was already filmed in this movie before Sinners Eve was successful. So there was like after Sinners did have, the rave reviews, made all the money, critically acclaimed. Like people were like, oh yeah, by the way, Jack O'Connell's playing a cult leader in 28 Years Later. Like I did see stories like that, but it'd be a little bit different because there's like a whole thing with like F1 now, and I know you've watched it, Dan, but there's like an actress who has been on the press tour talking about the film who was in the movie, and all of her lines got cut, and she's like not in the movie really anymore. Like that, if they did that for Jack O'Connell, then I would be like, okay, come on now.
I literally just made a video about that because he did Kaczynski did the same thing to what's his face, Manny Jacinto. He did the same thing in Top Gun Maverick, and he didn't know till he watched the fucking movie, and he was like, hey, where'd all my stuff go? And it's the same shit they did to May Kalamaui in Gladiator 2, the Palestinian actress. Like, hey, where's my whole fucking arc? Like, it's just gone. What happened? Like, it's a bad look. It really is a bad look. And like, I've been thinking more about F1 since I watched it. Damson Idris's characters, something's weird there too. Like the way they like his role feels like it was larger and then was cut down. And like what she was supposed to be was a romantic like partner for him, and they were supposed to have this whole story. And it's so much Brad Pitt, and he gets this whole romantic story, and every poster is just Brad Pitt, and it's like Brad Pitt fucking sucks in that movie. He's terrible.
I'm watching it tomorrow. Can't wait.
It's just like generic, like, gunslinger story. You've seen him, like, you'll watch it. But what I've been thinking about it more, I'm just liking it way less. And I think there's something there with this stuff because, like, it's the second time Kaczynski's done this to, like, a minority actor. And it's a bad look for sure. So
I haven't seen it, but I'm just curious, why is Brad Pitt back? Because my thing with Brad Pitt is, do you think his problem is he's not accepting his age? It's like he's still trying to be a young man. Is that what not works about F1?
Yeah, well, it's this thing you've seen a million times. He's just like this grizzled old veteran driver who just knows it all. Like he's never wrong in the movie. Like he knows everything. He tells the woman who's the head technical lead on the team like how to build the car to make it like.
So he's Tom Cruise in Top Gun 2, basically. He's just the same archetype.
Yeah, and Tom Cruise in Final Reckoning, where just like, I'm the only guy who can be trusted with this AI that runs. Like, it's very much just this infallible guy that everyone kind of worships. And it's just like, this is tired, man. Like, And Brad Pitt, I mean, I was thinking about making a video about this too. Brad Pitt is not a great actor, straight up. Brad Pitt was one of the most handsome people ever. At his time, in his heyday, he was charismatic. He has a couple roles that he crushes. The rest of the time, he's just cruising as Brad Pitt because he looks like Brad Pitt. And that is the truth. Like, I truly think that. Like, there's a couple times he's special. And the rest of it, like, he's just not that great of an actor, and he was really bad in this movie. Like I'll fight for that. So that's my take on Brad Pitt.
Okay,
And
roping it back.
Domestic abuser. So like we just don't talk about that, but he's an abuser too. Like
Okay, with 28 years later, it was funny because Dan watched it before me, and then I watched it, and I said, you know what? I actually kind of like that movie. And he's like, yeah, man, I'm not surprised. I was like, okay, damn.
no, I thought you were gonna like the movie.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this: I watch F1 tomorrow. Do you think I'll feel the same way as you when it comes to F1?
I think you'll be about the same place as I am.
Okay, cool.
Like it's fine, but like it's there's some weird shit when you think about the movie for sure.
Yeah. I'm not really big into F1, so we'll see. I wasn't big into plane like fighter jets either, but man, Maverick got me. I did not think that movie was going to get me, but it did.
Yeah.
We'll see. So any zombie fans, if you're listening, this isn't zombies, but if you're a fan of Brad Pitt in World War Z, drop a like and a follow and comment down below. But yeah, those are our thoughts. And 28 years later, go ahead and follow LP on TikTok. Greatest deep dives, maybe on the entire app. Put out 2 videos. Now we know his true thoughts on 28 years later, but doesn't mean that all of his video. I mean, still informative, man. Even if you don't like absolutely love it, I love hearing you talk about it.
I think I would put it like I would say I like it. I'm definitely leaning more towards liking. I'm definitely more on with. I think I'm in the middle of you two, but I think I definitely lean more towards I like the film. I didn't
like
love
you said
it.
at the beginning, it's not all about like it's not about love hate. It's about like
appreciating.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I really appreciate what it's trying to do for sure. I just love any filmmaker that swings. I mean, like listen, I'm an M. Night Shyamalan defender till the day I die because that guy swings.
You like Avatar?
Listen, the guy. We're not going to talk about that one, but he swings. You know what I'm saying? Does he always connect? Absolutely not. But that's what I appreciate about him. He swings. I know there was a lot of people that hated. What was the newest one called that had Josh Hart in it?
Trap.
Yeah, a lot of people hated Trap. He swung. I appreciate it.
I also love that he always just finances his own movies. So just do what you want if you're making your own movies.
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
Cast her. Even if your daughter's not the best actor in the world, cast her. Get her some more recognition. Do what you want. But speaking of doing what you want, guys, let us know what you thought about 28 years later. Follow LP. You won't regret it. Trust me. And form your own opinion. Don't listen to us. You could hate this movie. You could like it. Or if you didn't even watch it and you're listening to this episode, you're kind of weird, but appreciate it. We'll see you on the next one.